I think every review of this game will tell you what an icon Lara Croft is, and there's no wonder why, because from 1996 onwards, she's been in a steady stream of games that rightfully cement her position into the Gaming Hall of Fame. Initially released on the Sega Saturn, then PlayStation 1, and then PC, the original Tomb Raider ushered in a new era of action games that seemed ahead of its time. Asper seems to understand the pedigree of the series and presents us with this trilogy remaster, complete with the first 3 games and all DLCs. What's it like? Prepare to travel back in time, load up those dual pistols, and hunt for treasure as we review the Tomb Raider 1-3 Remastered Trilogy for Nintendo Switch. Now, before we go hunting for treasure, would you mind hunting for that like and subscribe button? It's the best way to help me get found on YouTube, and I can't thank you enough for doing so. Now, as we jump in, let's talk about the collection itself. Now, there's been some care taken, and the best part, for my OCD anyway, is that the collection falls under one home screen icon for the Switch. You navigate through the titles by pressing up and down, and the menus are almost true to the original versions that I played many moons ago. Once you're in the game, you can instantly flip between the new look and the old look by pressing the plus button. While this is usually a nice feature, it's almost needed as a gameplay mechanic, but more on that later. The games have a fresh lick of paint that manages to capture how I feel like I remember the games in my head, and then switching back to the original graphics shows us just how far we've come. Lara looks faithfully recreated to a high standard, and some models have had a nice makeover too. Environmental geometry remains largely untouched, with jagged edges poking out everywhere, and the developer opting for a more subtle texture reskins while adding light shafts and overgrown ferns in areas. It's not the most groundbreaking of visuals you will find on the Nintendo Switch, but it runs at a silky smooth 60 frames per second and manages to look decent without losing the magic of the original. Other changes include a new movement method that doesn't really work a lot of the time. I found the modern controls to be fantastic for traversal, but lacking when it comes to platforming or combat sections of the game. You can switch back to your tank controls, which is what I tended to stick with for my time with the trilogy, and even using the analog stick with those controls led to some very frustrating experiences. The initial game was designed with the D-pad in mind, so that's what I ended up reverting to, which unfortunately just feels really dated to play. There is also a photo mode included in the remaster, which I didn't use much, but screenshot enthusiasts will be happy to know that it's there. For the uninitiated, the original games play more like action platformers, with a little bit of combat mixed in. The game still manages to build a lot of atmosphere as you delve into the depths of the ruins or wander through the jungle. The first game stays rather grounded in its setting, whereas the sequels tend to be more of a globe-trotting adventure. In your downtime, you can visit Lara's mansion to brush up on your skills, or lock your butler in the freezer, which is classic Tomb Raider style. There are a lot of puzzles to solve and platforms to jump on, as well as deadly traps and some adrenaline-pumping action moments where you avoid rolling boulders, snake pits, and lethal falls. But to me, the biggest issue with the Tomb Raider 1-3 Remaster Trilogy is that many of its improvements just don't work with the mechanics of the game. The remastered graphics look great, and the 60 frame per second boost that comes with it is such a nice touch, but it's almost too dark to play with no option to adjust brightness. I found myself constantly switching between new and old graphics just to be able to see clearer or plan out where I needed to jump. The graphic change mechanic could have been a really nice feature, but instead it's almost reduced to being like Batman's detective mode, shining light on the surrounding area by switching back to the old style graphics. In some cases, the older style graphics were better at discerning hazards like spike pits and swamp and quicksand, which simply just isn't animated in the new mode. The new controls are okay for getting around, but absolutely woeful for platforming and combat. Moves like the backwards and sidewards somersaults are unable to be executed with modern controls, which is almost essential for combat and makes it a frustrating exercise in circle strafing enemies hoping to get some shots off. For my vision impaired archaeologist, I cannot recommend the Tomb Raider trilogy unless playing strictly in the older style graphics engine due to the reworked engine making everything just far too dark to be able to navigate in, even for someone like me. There are no options to adjust the brightness or contrast in the game, and it led to a lot of frustrating situations that could have just been rectified if there was a slider to adjust them. It really is a shame because it's clear to me that the Asper team definitely handled this port with care, and I know that seems almost contradictory to the issues laid bare in this review. But the problem is the game was just built for D-pad tank controls for that pinpoint movement and platforming, which is negated by these new controls. And as for the graphics issues, well, hopefully they can just be patched in an update by simply adding the option to change brightness and contrast. Much like the treasures you plunder from the depths in the ruins of the Peruvian mountains, Tomb Raider is somewhat of a relic. Delightful to see, and it's great to look back on, but it also shows us just how far we've come. For fans of the series, it's a great way to revisit these classic games, but for newcomers, unfortunately I think it's best to just move to the next exhibit. I award it a 66 out of 100. Thank you so much for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it. Because of amazing people like you, What's It Like is now my full-time job. I also do want to do a special shout out to my Patreons, S Hill, K Skip, and D Kite. I couldn't have done it without your support. Thank you.